The actual issue here is that you don't like being uncomfortable, and as soon as you get uncomfortable or anticipate being uncomfortable, like emotionally uncomfortable, you go down the downward spiral of I'm not good enough. And what we want to ensure that we do is that we do not immediately default in any situation in our business to I'm not good enough. You're listening to the From Imposter to Empowered podcast. I'm your host, Jill Perrick, a business and mindset coach who specializes in imposter syndrome. If you feel like you're not as smart, capable, or worthy as you actually are, and that someone is going to find you out, then you've come to the right place. I went from being a struggling government worker, working my coaching business on the side, but feeling unworthy and burnt out, to making multiple six figures helping women overcome imposter syndrome so they too can sign clients, make bank, and have the business or career of their dreams. I am nothing special. I have a stuttering disability, ADHD, and I struggle with anxiety and depression. So if I can learn how to feel good enough and overcome my inner imposter, then so can you. Let's dig in. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you guys here today. Today, we're going to be talking specifically about imposter syndrome, overcoming it. And I know that's crazy, right? On the From Imposter to Empowered podcast, who fucking knew? But I actually just had a really great podcast interview with Ashley, the host of the Serene CEO podcast. And that interview should be out already. It should have come out last week or something like that. But we had a really good conversation about imposter syndrome and growing your online business to 5-figure months. And I have a couple of things to say about this. But the first thing I'm going to say is that's what I primarily go on people's podcasts for, is imposter syndrome. Whenever people want me to come and speak for them, it usually is about imposter syndrome. And I just want to emphasize how important it is to have something that you're an expert in. Okay, because it's really important to be able to talk about something and go on and on about something, that it doesn't have to necessarily be your niche, but some type of specialization that you're really skilled at, that you feel like you have a lot of experience in, and that separates you from the rest, especially because a lot of coaches are very similar in nature and we use all of the same tools. But this is something that I did very early on. I differentiated myself with imposter syndrome as a specialization. It wasn't the only thing that I could do, but it was something that I was an expert on and that I decided to specialize in. And I would always have people asking for me to come and speak in their groups. So I've been paid several $1,000s to speak for group coaching programs as the host coach, and I've been asked to be on numerous different podcasts because I talk about imposter syndrome in business and with entrepreneurs, and that is something that not a lot of people talk about, right? So have something that you specialize in. So for example, one of my one-to-one clients, she recently switched into business coaching, and she has a very unique angle in terms of being a legend in the manifestation space. She also has OCD, and she knows how difficult it can be for people with OCD when it comes to manifesting and running a business. So when she wanted to pivot, I fully supported her, but I was like, you need an angle that is different so you don't get lost in the noise. So have a specialization. I'm telling you, it will be so powerful for you and will differentiate you from the rest. Another thing about this podcast interview I did with Ashley was when she was introducing me, she read the bio that I sent in, and I honestly was like, damn, I did all that. It was so funny because I obviously fucking wrote it, but hearing someone repeat it back was really, really cool. And I was on Threads later and I was like, I need to listen to that over and over again because wow, sometimes I forget the accomplishments that I've had and what I've done over the past 6 years of having my business. And even then, yeah, I've had my business for 6 years, but it's really only been 4 years since I've been making any fucking money at it, right? So anyways, imagine if someone was reading your bio of your accomplishments. Write them down and read them for yourself. It feels so good, and that power, that feeling of being proud of yourself goes such a long way, especially when you struggle with not feeling good enough and feeling like a fraud. Now, let me remind y'all, if you haven't heard me say it in a while, imposter syndrome is a dysfunctional thinking pattern and it is not the truth. The sooner you realize this, the easier things will feel. Instead of thinking that you don't know what you're doing, that you're going to be found out and that people are going to criticize you. But here's the thing, just because you have feelings and thoughts consistent with imposter syndrome, just because you have these thoughts that you're not good enough, it does not mean that you're a fraud. It does not mean that you don't have value to give your audience. It does not mean that you're copying anybody or that you're not original or that you don't have original ideas. What's really happening here, and this can be at any level that you're at, is that you're afraid that if somebody was to call you out, if somebody were to oppose you, if you were to get criticism, if you were to experience an uncomfortable situation, you will then have thoughts confirming that you're a fraud. So you're afraid to fucking trigger yourself. For example, if you are somebody who is already working with clients, you have a client situation where a client is asking you a question, or they feel frustrated with their results, or they're just having an off day or an off week, it is very common for people who struggle with imposter syndrome to turn it around on themselves and think, I'm not doing enough. I'm not enough. I've had so much experience with clients as well who have literally hired me because of this exact thing, because they are genuinely afraid that they are not as good as they say that they are, that they're not as good as their prices show, so they will slow themselves down. They won't sell their offers, and it will create a significant gap in their income, all because of imposter syndrome, even though these are people who have experience, that have client testimonials, and have been in the game for a while. So the problem is not the client, okay? The problem is not the client having thoughts or having an off day. The solution is not to get better at your job, even though, of course, we can all grow, we can all learn. And I actually think that clients that aren't getting results, or clients that aren't doing well, or even clients that are a little bit difficult, are so good for our growth because we're able to move beyond our skills, right? So we're able to use our tools and really expand ourselves as a coach. But the issue here, so none of that is a problem. The actual issue here is that you don't like being uncomfortable, and as soon as you get uncomfortable or anticipate being uncomfortable, like emotionally uncomfortable, you go down the downward spiral of I'm not good enough. And what we want to ensure that we do is that we do not immediately default in any situation in our business to I'm not good enough. Another example that I'll say here is somebody who may not necessarily have clients yet. They are creating content and showing up though, but something that they're afraid of doing is going live on Instagram or going live on TikTok. Again, they're afraid that if they get a little bit uncomfortable or a lot uncomfortable, it will only confirm the negative thoughts that they have about themselves. And this is honestly just the fear of your own power and what you're capable of. This is the fear of your own power because you know how strong it is when you have an emotional reaction to something. So you will avoid doing things like going live on Instagram, for example, or actually selling your offer or talking to the camera. And these things sound so simple when I say them, but I am even somebody, and also because I have a fucking speech impediment too, like that's always a factor here, but I am somebody who I've had weeks where I just didn't feel as confident or whatever, and it's still hard to go live. So it can still be hard to do things like go live. However, when I become aware of the fact that it's not that these things are hard, it's that I'm afraid to have a thought about myself, I'm afraid to have a feeling that I cannot instantly recover from, or that is gonna make me feel bad in any way, like that is what I'm avoiding, right? Like that is what I am avoiding when I'm not doing the things that I should be doing in my business. So whenever my clients are procrastinating or something, for example, I had a client that was really procrastinating on doing a course, and when we were talking about it, I was like, what are you afraid you're going to think as you're creating the course? And she was like, I'm afraid that I'm going to think that it's not that good. And that is the reason behind her procrastination. It was the fact that she was so afraid that when she would actually start doing the course, she would have thoughts of, this isn't that good. And I'm so disappointed that I can't create a good course. This isn't good enough. And I cannot tell you guys how many things come back to imposter syndrome as an entrepreneur. And this is why I'm so passionate about this being a specialization in my coaching, because the amount of work, the amount of clients, the amount of sales that my clients make as a result of overcoming imposter syndrome, just this one thing creates such an amazing effect throughout their content, throughout their business, throughout their sales. They feel so confident, they feel so sure of themselves, and they sell so much more confidently because of the work that we're doing on imposter syndrome. So back to what I was saying, you're not a fraud and you're avoiding doing things in your business, okay? You are holding back in your content. You're not saying the things that you really want to say. You're telling yourself, I don't know what to say, because you think that you're a fraud or that you think that you're not good enough. You think you don't know enough, and it's going to lead you to have even more negative thoughts about yourself and more negative feelings if you were to actually take the action you want to take and make the moves that you should make to create success for yourself. You are your biggest mountain. And I think I said that in one of the podcasts episodes in March. But everything in business is just an emotional problem that you need to learn how to overcome. Procrastination, things with clients, issues with money, these are all things that have an emotional connection to them. And when you learn how to be so emotionally resilient in your business, there is truly nothing that you can't overcome. And because you subconsciously know that, you are more likely to take action on those things. And when we're thinking about transcending that imposter syndrome identity, what you need to do is start identifying with that highest version of yourself, with the version of you that you would be without the imposter syndrome. And this is going to take some thinking on your part, right? Like, this is going to take some intentional action, because if you identify with feeling like a fraud, if you identify with not feeling good enough, it's very easy to default to those kinds of thoughts when you, for example, are going to go live or when you're experiencing an issue with a client. So if we go back to the conversation that we were having about the client who was having a hard day or who wasn't seeing results when this is occurring, what is your default reaction? Somebody who doesn't feel like a fraud, somebody who doesn't think that their work is shit and doesn't think that they don't know what they're talking about, they're going to have a completely different set of thoughts and actions when something like this occurs. And that's what I want you to think about. Is if you are somebody who has thoughts of feeling like a fraud, if you have thoughts of I'm not good enough, if you're constantly afraid in the back of your mind of being criticized or called out or opposed, I want you to realize that this is your fear saying that if these things were to happen, you would not be able to handle it emotionally, or you would not be able to handle the thoughts that come up because of that situation. But this is where you grow your emotional resilience. This is where you do the hard things, you take the action, and you learn to disregard the negative thoughts that come up. So when I was first starting out and I started to go live on Instagram, it was very hard at the beginning because I felt very dysregulated afterwards and I didn't feel like I did a good job. I felt like I rambled a lot. I actually had a client who would go live on Instagram and then she would have to regulate herself afterwards. So she would go to Starbucks and she would get herself a coffee because she needed to regulate her nervous system after going live. But after a couple of times, she didn't need to do that anymore. And that is the goal, is to grow your resilience, is to have that stamina so you can do more and take more action without it taking up all of your emotional and physical energy. I have clients and I have friends who are like, why the fuck and how the fuck do you get so much stuff done? And besides me being a fucking generator in human design, so when I have a lot of focused energy and when I feel really lit up by the things that I'm doing, it's very easy for me to knock out a ton of work at once. But I am also somebody who, if I'm relaxing, I'm relaxing. But when I work, I like to get stuff done in a short amount of time too. And sometimes that does mean putting off a project or putting something off until I have to do it in all one sitting, which is ADHD for sure, but it is also because I do not have any mental or emotional drama about the work that I have to do. I'm not berating myself as I'm trying to complete a podcast script or as I'm trying to complete video scripts for curriculum or for courses that I'm creating, and that comes from the confidence that I have in myself, in my services, and in the work that I can share with the world and with my clients and my potential clients. You're going to procrastinate, you're going to hold back, and you're going to take forever to get things done when you have the mental chatter of somebody who doesn't believe in themselves. And the same thing goes when you're afraid, like subconsciously afraid, that your emotional safety is going to be at risk. So for those of you who haven't read The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, it's a really good book. And one of the things that he talks about is how back in the day when cavemen used to roam the earth, and you guys, I'm sure you've heard me talk about this several times before, our physical safety was often in danger. So we had to use our primitive brains to keep ourselves safe, to keep ourselves away from that saber-toothed tiger, from the danger that was outside of the cave. But what the author of The Untethered Soul said in his book is that now that we don't have that physical danger each and every day, the threat is to our emotional safety, to our sense of self, to our character. And that is why it's so hard for you to get things done. That's why it's so hard for you to do the things that you really know that you have to do to take things to the next level, to elevate your income, to get clear on your messaging. It's all because you have this fear around activating your emotions and putting yourself in emotional danger. Because when we don't know who we are, or when we don't have a solid sense of self and it can be swayed by a situation with another person or somebody's word, or if we were to put ourselves out there online, it's going to feel like a threat to who we are. So I know that this is a lot of deep conversation that we're having right now, but I just want you to understand why you're probably not taking the action, or why you say you want to do something in your business, whether it's like you're at the beginning and you want to show up confidently and do your thing, or if you've been coaching for a while, you have clients, you're making money, but you're stuck at an income ceiling and you're trying to figure out how to get through that income ceiling. You feel like you're doing everything right, but there's this little nagging voice inside of you being like, you could go bigger. You could do things in a bigger, more exaggerated way to be seen more. So if you're one of those people at the beginning or not, I'm telling you that I want you to pay attention to your inner dialogue. I want you to pay attention to, are you just trying to keep yourself emotionally safe? And what do you think is going to happen if you were to go bigger, if you were to be seen in a bigger way? Because your subconscious is so fucking smart. Your subconscious is already 10 steps ahead and thinking, well, that's why, bitch. That's why we're playing small, because I know that if we do this big thing, I'm going to feel threatened and I'm going to feel not good enough. And that's why I always say imposter syndrome is something that you will hit up against over and over again in your career. And it doesn't mean that you're not good enough and that you never have been good enough. It's just so you get comfortable at a certain level, at a certain stage, that you start to feel comfortable. But then when it's time to get uncomfortable again, when it's time to be seen in a bigger way, your subconscious is like, hell no, we're so comfortable here. I don't want to go and be uncomfortable again. But that is the sweet spot. This is the place where it's between like comfort and familiarity and risk and possibility. That is the place where you're going to achieve everything that you've ever wanted. It's that place of minor discomfort where you are stretching your identity. And I've said this before, but there have been tons of research to suggest that we are happiest when we are mildly uncomfortable. So if something is too hard, we're not going to do it. If something is too easy, we're not going to do it. We are happy with a challenge, with some type of challenge, but it can't feel too hard or we are going to ignore it. We're going to avoid it. So this is where you have to learn how to respond as if you don't have imposter syndrome, to think as if you really are an expert and you really know what you're talking about. And a lot of people would say that this is fake it till you make it, but I see it as being until you are. You're not faking anything because you are good enough. You do know what you're talking about. You are an expert at what you do. Even if you don't feel 100% confident at what you do right now, you're going to grow. You're going to learn. You're going to evolve. And that is something that I always tell myself is that like it can't go downhill from here. Like I'm only going to learn more and know more in the future, right? But you can't grow. You can't expand. You can't create all the things that you want to create if you don't learn to put yourself out there now to be a little bit uncomfortable. And I just need you to hear that today. I really wanted you to hear that. And it doesn't matter where you are in your business. If you're already making money, if you're already at 10K or 15K months, you can always go bigger. You can always go bigger. You can always make more money. You can always have more of the life in the business that you want. And that starts with you actually seeing yourself as that highest self today. That starts with when you have a situation that would usually trigger your imposter syndrome or that feeling of not being good enough, you actually lean into how would the highest version of me respond to this? What would I be thinking and how would I be acting if I didn't even have an inkling that I was a fraud? If I never even had the thought of I'm not good enough? So this kind of thought process has caused me to become such a good fucking coach because instead of freaking out when a client used to ask me questions or something that I didn't know or they wanted some really transformative coaching, instead of shrinking, I rose to the occasion. If somebody is coming to you with questions, if somebody is seeing you as somebody who can lead them, fucking lead them. Be the leader, even if you have 10 fucking Instagram followers, even if you're speaking to 5 people on your Instagram story. Those people have come to see what you have to say. And I don't care if it's your mom, I don't care if it's your best friend, because you are going to grow your audience based on the things that you're saying and based on how you show up. So be that leader that people see in you, especially when it comes to imposter syndrome. Half the time, people are seeing your potential before you even see it. And that's why I fucking love hiring coaches, because I get to see myself through their eyes. And when you have a good fucking coach, they really believe in you and they really believe that you are everything that you say that you are and everything that you're showing up as. And my love, when you come into the From Imposter to Empowered program, which is my group program, my rolling group program for you if you're between 0 and 3K a month, if you're making no money or if you're making a couple $1,000s and you're like, I'm ready to get a 5K month, I'm ready to show up confidently, I'm ready to sell my services every single day, overcome my imposter syndrome, comparison, the fear of judgment, right? Like you're ready to be seen. You want the mindset along with the strategy that it's going to get you to 5K months. then you're going to want to be inside of this program. Because like I said, this is a rolling program. It's going to be open year round, and we are currently in the grand opening right now. So that means when you join between now and next Thursday, April 11th, no matter if you do the pay in full or do the payment plan, whether you join for 6 months or 12 months, you will also receive my Empowered and Effortless Sales Bundle, which is a hypnosis and subconscious reprogramming bundle. And you will get to come to the workshop that I'm hosting on Friday, April 12th. I'm going to be doing a whole day workshop with you inside of the From Imposter to Empowered program. It's going to be called the 5K Slay, and you're going to be ready to go after that workshop with your offers, with your mindset, and with the messaging that you need to make 5K this month, in April of this month. And the amazing part is you can join for only $333 a month, right? Like just $333 a month. When you join for 6 months, or if you join for a year, your payments are reduced even more. And this is just a really great beginner program for you if you're ready to overcome imposter syndrome, overcome those feelings of not being good enough now, so you can grow your business to 5K months, 10K months, and beyond. I am so excited to run this program, so excited to coach you inside of the From Imposter to Empowered program. Like, you do not even know the level of the curriculum. When you see it, you're going to be like, this is everything, because it is everything. It's everything how to when it comes to your mindset, when it comes to making sales, when it comes to content and messaging. You're going to know how to do everything from your content to your messaging to making sales to growing your business to even hiring your first hire. It is just so fucking epic. It's going to get you to 5K bare minimum months, and I can't wait for you to join this community. So I love you, and you can join at the link in my show notes. You can join directly from there. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to send me a DM at Your Coach Jill. But the sales page is just chock full of your questions and your answers and all the details that you need to know, as well as testimonials. So head over there. You can join directly and get instant access to the curriculum, my content and sales course, and instant access to the Slack community. And then, like I said, you will get the Empowered and Effortless Sales Bundle for free when you join between now and April 11th, and you will get the workshop that I'm doing next Friday, April 12th, the 5K Slay. So the link is in my show notes. I love you so much, and I'll see you next week. Thanks so much for listening to the From Imposter to Empowered podcast. Head to the show notes to learn how you can work with me, where you can buy my best-selling book, You're Not Special, and how to get on my email list for free. Screenshot this episode and add it to your Instagram stories, tagging me at Your Coach Jill. See you next time.